Okay, my name is Lucas Otsura. I'm an executive producer at Anshare Studios working on the GameDec project, which is an adaptive Cyberpunk isometric RPG. I'm gonna start away with the demo. Game is based in a cyberpunk dystopian world created by Marcin Przybyłek in a series of book novels under the same name, GameDec. It's a world where virtual and reality collide. There's a lot of virtual reality games. People live in those, live their lives in virtual, they live in real world, they earn money in both of them. It's a world that is very post-transhumanism problem. So, you know, those Ex problems have already been solved. Nobody's questioning is AI a sentient being. You have AIs walking around in robot bodies in real life. You have people downloading themselves into video games, so like Ghost in the Machine, and that's also a normal thing. So in that sense, it's like a post-transhumanism, Ready Player One kind of setting, with a cool addition of a profession called a GameDec. GameDec is a game detective that solves crimes or solves problems in virtual worlds. He specializes in video games as a detective. And this is our protagonist, GameDec. And for the purpose of this demo, we have been contacted by a client to meet him inside a video game called Harvest Time. So now I'm in Realium in Low City, and I will go into the Yeti's bar, a gamer's bar, and try to log into one of those games. When I try to get in, the bouncer is giving me a hard time, asking that my outfit is not proper, and I have a standard RPG dialogue tree here. So already showcasing a couple of mechanics that we want to have in our game. We'll have attributes, and we can roll inside those dialogue choices on the attributes. For example, here you can roll on charisma. You have aspects, which are elements that you either chosen at the character creation screen when you created your character, or you acquire them by being by choosing different routes inside the game. You can acquire certain aspects. So here I can, for example, use an aspect that my character grew up in Low City, so I'm from here, so he should let me in. I'm gonna go with the normal dialogue option that I'm a GameDec. GameDec is quite a respected profession in that world, so he's not giving me a hard time anymore, and he's letting me into the bar. So what happens here is that I reminiscent about the details of the case, which are not much, that I'm supposed to log into Harvest Time and meet a guy named Stan.
Now, is a GameDec a program, or is it like a robot that's called a GameDec, or is that just like what you call your detectives in this one?
No, that's a profession. That's you are a GameDec if you are a private eye that specializes in virtual games. So they're usually either ex-pro gamers, for example, because you need to have a deep understanding of how video games work, or they have a detective background, or maybe they have a hacker background. They can have a multiple different backgrounds, but it's a profession. So what I'm supposed to do here is to go upstairs here and log into one of those couches. In this world, to log into a game, you sit on a couch in a special suit, put on a helmet, take a pill to control your bodily functions. It's usually super safe, so it's not like Matrix style when you inject something in your head and if you log out improperly you're dead. It's very common to log into a game, so it's made so that it's easy for your body. And I have a first, you might say, a mini quest, mini challenge here is that the area upstairs is VIP only, so I'm going to use that situation just to showcase an example of how we approach game design in GameDec. We want the players to explore the game in a way like when you usually explore a game, you say, okay, what the game designers have envisioned for me. What are the paths that they programmed for me or designed? And we want to go, most of the team working on this project are in love with pen and paper RPGs, and we want to have that feeling of, hey, you're in a bar, you need to go upstairs, there's a barrier, what do you do? So that the ideas on how to actually solve should come from the context and from the player asking himself, hey, maybe I'll try this one, right? So you're in a bar, you, as a pen and paper player, it's a trope that was used 100 times, so obviously I'm going to approach a bartender, and hey, I need to go upstairs. And this is actually how we prototype the game. When we have an idea for a case, for a detective case inside a game, it's been first laid out by the designer, and then actually we play a couple of pen and paper sessions with different groups to find out, okay, how they would tackle this problem, and then we try to incorporate as much of that into our game. Obviously not all is possible, but we do our best. So he says, okay, you can pay me basically, or I can use an aspect. For the purpose of this demo, I have a lot of aspects. I'm a buffed out character. So I can say, hey, I used to be a pro player. And he scans me and he says, okay, you can come in. So now I'm going to log into Harvest Time, which is a Wild West kind of a setting game, and a hardcore free-to-play grinder where people live their lives out trying to grind out as much as possible to earn a living, actually, to earn money. And as you can see, the settings completely changed. Now we're inside a virtual game, but it's a Wild West. And GameDec, the world that Marcin created, allows us to create, whatever we basically want, whatever idea we have. So if you want to have a Jurassic Park-like world with dinosaurs, we can have that. If you want to have, EVE Online kind of a space world, we can have that also. So we want the games, the cases in GameDec to happen in different virtual worlds. So there's going to be a couple of different settings. This Wild West free-to-play grindy game is an example. And as you can see, there are things that are specific, not only art, but small things like this cow is probably breeding meat, if you know what I mean, free-to-play wise, or I have this little HUD display so I can earn money inside that game and use it for something that will gonna help me inside that game. I'm gonna ask this help bot because my objective actually is to find Stan here, so my employee, find out what's going on.
It's Handy Joe.
Yeah. And so I am asking that I'm looking for Stan. He said that there's one guy online called Stanford. He can mark him for me. So I have this little augmented reality inside that game thing that's going to point me to Stan now. I could have found Stan I could just go there and find him, or go about it a different way. The idea for a game here is that there's at least a couple of ways of doing something, right? That's our core idea when we design stuff. So I'm gonna have a dialogue right now with Stan and ask him why the heck he hired me. What's the problem? And he explains to me that right now he and his clan, or a group of gamers, they don't trust anybody for whatever reason. So I try to ask what he means by the plural form. He mentions that people wearing orange are all from the same guild or clan. And when I inquire deeper of what's going on, he says that they're basically all feeling sick when they play Harvest Time. They have time lapses, slurred speech, and other problems and they know that it's connected some way to the fact that they're playing Harvest Time, because that's what this happens. So he tasked me with finding out what's happening. So I added all his friends to my friends list inside that game, so the barriers now should disappear and I should have entrance to their little grindy spots. But what's the most important fact is that I learned I learned an information here. I learned that, okay, they all have similar symptoms, something's wrong with them. So I'm going to use that to showcase the deduction tab for this case, which is our main feature of the game. So every case has such a deduction tab, which is constructed in a way that on your left hand, you have informations that will allow you to deduce one of the possible outcomes. Depending on what type of information you have, you can choose different types of outcomes. I'm going to get back to that a little bit later.
So it's kind of similar. I mean, I know you don't like being compared to other games, but it's kind of
No.
similar to like Vampire a little bit with that like system.
With what?
Vampire.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good comparison.
I'm glad you like that one. That's good. I like that game. So yeah.
No, the idea here is that when you have a detective game, usually you simply I can do little things like grind stuff inside that game, also get money out of it, and maybe use that later on. But what I was saying is, usually when you have a detective game, you gather information, and when you have enough information, you do some kind of a minigame,
Right.
and then you get the correct outcome or maybe if you didn't gather all the information or whatever, you have the bad outcome, right?
LA Noire comes to mind.
Exactly, Alan Noir is an excellent comparison, and what we wanna do here is we don't want to outweigh that this is the right. I mean, the truth is one, obviously, but you can skew it a little bit. You can have your own interpretation. So all the branches here are valid. It's not like, for example, one of the greatest RPGs, Fallout. In Fallout, the good path, when you do quests the good way, you're the good guy, you usually have more content. When you're the bad guy, the pathways are usually shorter. The reason for that is that nobody wants to be a bad guy, right? Usually you want to be a good guy inside a video game, unless you're a troll. And what happens is that designers tend to over-design the pathway that is the right one. We don't structure cases that it's good or bad. It's just more like situations, and you can interpret them in different way, and all are equally valid and have a similar weight to them when it comes to gameplay value. So it's like your story. It's still a choice engine, it's still branching, obviously, but at the end it feels more personal, that it's your gameplay experience.
Right.
So that's the idea. Obviously it has its limits because the complications are enormous, right? If you do...
It's like what you're telling me is basically there's no like there's no clear good or evil, there's just shades of gray.
Yeah,
everywhere,
yeah. I mean, it's Cyberpunk, so yeah. So yeah, while I was grinding this little crop here, this player was supposed to log off because something was wrong with his not with his couch, but with him physically. So how this world works, he should be logged out automatically, nothing should happen to him. But for some reason he didn't. People are starting to, gather around, and apparently this didn't happen for the first time. And I have a couple options here right now. What I can do is I can do an intelligence roll and try to figure out why it's happening before I help log him out, because I can do that because GameDecs in this game, they're not necessarily super hackers or super programmers, but they do have a wide variety of programs, software that they can use. They usually know how to hack a game like a modder knows how to hack a game, for example, right? In this way.
So like when you say like you have specs, obviously it's intelligence 50, that's like a DC 50. Does that mean you have like an intelligence spec that you can level up and like increase in the game, or?
It's more like you have you can level up your attributes, but we don't have like a clear experience points that you need to, and you can pick and choose then what do you want to expand. It's more like your choices, using something extensively. For example, if I would use my intelligence a lot also to, for example, hack into stations, I would get the hackerman aspect, right? I have it already right now, so making the roll doesn't make any sense because using the aspect is a given. But for example, I can use an aspect in some cases. Hackerman is not a good example, and use it and lose it. So for example, let's take a rich aspect. If I make a case and I'm being paid a lot of money, I will gain a rich aspect. And a rich aspect allows me to use it in all situations where a little bit of money is, like a subscription to enter the VIP section or to buy a drink or whatever. So I continuously can use that aspect because I'm rich. But at a certain point, this aspect can be used, for example, to pay somebody off of a big amount of money, which will change the course of the game in some way. But I will lose the rich aspect because I used a lot of money. So it's a kind of a RPG simplification here of how the resource system works. So I can either hack in, or I can just try to immediately save him, logging out, and take care of his health. So I'm going to do that here. So screw the data, we want to save the guy. And what happens is that his friend is actually yelling at me right now because Dad lost his grinding, his save. And now he's a couple of days of grinding behind. He's not going to be happy about it. She actually gives me a task in the game to help her out, maybe to grind some more money for him when he logs on again. But yeah, I'm not going to do that. So yeah. What happened here has got another information to the deduction tab that accidents do happen in harvest time. But I lost access to, there was probably some other information there, right? Because I could do the roll, I could use the aspects, so probably I could have gotten more from that particular situation. It's quite easy in GameDec to lose an opportunity to gain an information in this particular instance, but there are a lot of ways to gain, like 3 to 4, depends on the information, but like 3 to 4 seems like a reasonable number of options how to gain that information. Like 2 is an absolute minimum, usually. Obviously there are exceptions. So for example, there's some kind of orange clothes here lying here. If I put it on, the world around me in my immediate vicinity starts to go very fast. The grinding is accelerated and I feel dizzy, I don't feel very well. So I try to analyze what has happened to me, and what it turns out, we did have a fail on it. So what happens is I got logged out and logged into game again to preserve my health, but I did get the information, and the information is that they have the Orange Clan in some way. They have accelerated couches, so they grind, for example, for a couple of days, but the actual grind time is much lower, right? Yeah, maybe unwillingly, maybe willingly, but something's wrong with the couches, and this what happened to me for a second here. So okay, I'm gonna steal that guy's coin. Yay! He should react to that, but he didn't. Oh well.
Pre-alpha.
Pre-alpha build. So actually, I went off script here because there was the guy here named Ake, and I was supposed to talk to him, but he ran away to make sure that everything's fine with the guy that just logged out. So I'm gonna just talk to Norman here, and he's gonna give me another bit of information that the guys from that clan are one of the best workers in the they're the top guild and they have awesome results. So now I have 4 information, and that is enough for me to deduce and to move forward with the case. And depending on what types of information I unlock on the left, I will have different types of not different types, but I can have not all options available to me at the same time. Right now I have a combination of information that allows me to have all the choices. So here I can either go with that there's some kind of a bigger conspiracy here going on, so go with the kind of a big brother motive here. I can focus on the accelerated couches, on is it a bug or a feature, is somebody modifying it willingly, unwillingly, etc. Or because they're getting sick, because the accident's happening, because they're being logged off, etc. And other possibilities that they're simply, because I know that they're from low city, that they're junkies, right? And that's the problem. So I'm gonna go with the junkies route just to showcase another feature that we have. You mentioned before La Noire, so that also was an inspiration to, in this particular case, choosing the junkies route here allow me to either move forward with the case and pursue that. For example, okay, so who sells them the drugs, why, who organized this, is this some kind of a drug deal, etc. going on, or I can just off the bat dismiss the case saying, yeah, you're feeling sick because you're junkies, and that's it, and that's end of the case. So it's a little similar to La Noire when you had a case. So for example, you come in, there was a black suspect, you don't need to even check the crime scene that thoroughly, you can just say, yeah, the black guy did it, right? So in here I can do similar thing, yeah, dismiss it, they're just junkies. Now I can do that either because I don't care, maybe I don't like that case, maybe I'm a troll, as I mentioned previously, or maybe on the course of the entire game somebody paid me off to do it and I have some other gain on the other side. So right now I'm being contacted by Kid. Kid is one of the main characters inside that game. He's a low city teenager that he's a gang leader actually for this clan. And he calls me that, hey, I heard you're sniffing around my clan. And that dialogue option that I have right here is because I deduced that, right? So I would have a different dialogue option and different branching narrative if I would go the other way. And when I say, yeah, I think they just use psychoactive substances, he says, yeah, they do take medicine, don't worry about it, it's not worth it. They're being taken care of by Nanette, which is another major character in the game. Because what happens here is that the game is constructed linearly, so you have a series of detective cases that are stories on their own, but there are main characters throughout the game that are recurring, and they also add to the branching, right? So depending on how you treat them in a particular case, are you on the good side with them, on the bad side? Do they owe you a favor, or you owe a favor to them, etc.? Their lives can go a different way, a different route, and later in the game, your choices are the more meaningful because of it, right? So it's also previously you mentioned before the Walking Dead series, so you know, the John will remember it, only you really will remember it. That's that's the idea, and that's GameDec. That's the idea for the game.
When's your targeted release?
Right now we're just saying 2020.